He considered credit cards to have a status, always had a, you know, the fact that he could have a card with his name on it. And I think the idea of paying for something with a platinum card seemed to say to him that he was respected and the bank respected him. The platinum card says you've got a lot of prestige and a lot of money, and it wasn't true. It was just like a sham, really.
It is generally felt that in the industry, by increasing the customer's credit limit, by upgrading their card to gold or platinum, you are increasing customer loyalty and hitting those marketing targets of retaining profitable customers.
Marion only discovered how much Mark owed after his death.
He just said he'd got into debt with credit cards. I mean, I knew he had credit cards, so I presumed that was it. It's only looking through finance now that I found out that he also had overdrafts and loans with the bank and loan companies.
Despite his £26,000 income, RBS lent Mark huge sums. It allowed him to build up a £6,000 overdraft. The bank lent him £15,000 to pay off his other lenders' credit card debts. It let him remortgage his and Marion's home to the tune of £80,000. And it didn't end there. By the time he took his own life, Mark owed his bank almost £120,000.
I can remember when I was quite a bit younger and I wanted to buy my first car. I had to sit in front of my bank manager and explain exactly how much the car was going to cost, how much I could afford, what my other outgoings were. But I think now, because it's offered, I think people somehow think if they're offered that amount of money, therefore they can afford it.
We showed the whistleblower Mark's financial records.
There were a number of warning signs from a relatively early stage that the bank should have picked up on. Here was a man on a very modest income. He was roughly earning £26,000 a year. He was lent his annual take-home pay just on credit cards, on 2 credit cards. He was making minimum payments on the cards for years. He wrote credit card checks from one of his RBS cards on a regular basis at exorbitant rates of interest and deposited them into his RBS bank account. The fact that he was overdrawn on his bank account, there are so many things the bank should have picked up on. There is no possible justification for the bank not to have understood that there were serious difficulties in this man's financial position. In my opinion, the bank was grossly irresponsible.
The Royal Bank of Scotland knew exactly what his bank details were. They knew how much he earned, they knew what he was paying out every month. They knew the sort of balance in his account. I can't understand why they would just keep letting him have more and more money.
The banks are basically neglecting their duty of care. They're putting profits before human life, almost. In circumstances like Mark MacDonald's, where there has been clear, irresponsible lending, in my opinion, there should be laws introduced where banks can be prosecuted. This is how serious I believe this is.
In a statement last month, the Royal Bank of Scotland said,
"Throughout Mr. MacDonald's time with RBS, we dealt with him in a responsive and professional manner. He had a regular dialogue with his personal banking manager, and the lending decisions on his account were consistently based on strict lending criteria. Mr. MacDonald managed his current account and maintained regular payments to both of his credit card accounts. He did not exceed his credit limit."
The bank's records show that at no time did Mr. MacDonald make contact with the bank to
to inform us that he was in financial difficulty.
That statement is seriously misleading. The bank says that Mark McDonald didn't tell them he was in financial difficulty, but the fact is, the bank knew. We've seen an internal RBS document which makes it clear that Mark's branch was aware of what it refers to, and I quote, as his financial difficulties. We've tried repeatedly to get an interview with RBS about their consumer lending decisions, but they've turned down all our requests. So I'm heading off to the global headquarters of RBS, just outside Edinburgh, to see if I can have a word with the chief executive, Sir Fred Goodwin. With profits for 2005 of £8 billion and a gleaming modern headquarters, RBS are certainly in no financial difficulty. Hi there. Sorry to bother you. I'm from BBC Panorama. We're hoping to have a word with the Chief Executive, Sir Fred Goodwin.
What, is it just on spec, or are you expected? What do you want me to do just now then, over?
The high street banks are constantly adjusting their financial strategy and launching new lending products. It's a fiercely competitive market, servicing a UK debt burden currently running at over £1 trillion.
Is that turned off, man? Excuse me, is that camera turned off?
Otherwise you'll have to get the police in. Sorry.
The marketing department is the engine of the business, and it will have a whole series of targets. It will have targets to attract new customers, which are extremely ambitious, and then you have very aggressive targets to maximise profits on existing customers. Monthly sales targets and meetings are what the marketing department lives for.
Credit cards are banks' biggest and most profitable consumer lending product, especially when we can be persuaded to increase our spending and to carry debt over from month to month.
What one needs to be aware of is the fact that a credit card company has the ability to communicate with its customers once a month. So therefore there is the ability to really target those customers to ensure you're getting maximum profitability.
However sad it is that people get into debt, and however much the banks may encourage it, surely it's people's own fault. They're responsible.
The individual always has a responsibility to make sure that they are not borrowing beyond their means and that they are able to repay whatever unsecured lending they take on.
The banks have other techniques to get you to borrow more from them. Robert Jenkins is another revolver. He's married to Evelyn, and they have 5 children in their teens. He's a school caretaker, and he earns £18,000 a year.
We lived very much hand to mouth. We had to budget carefully. Major bills, unexpected bills were a problem for us.
Robert's take-home pay was £250 a week, while Evelyn earned £100 a week in a part-time catering job. For years they were getting by, just. But in the eyes of their bank, Robert and Evelyn needed some financial help. Robert was called in for a meeting. He remembers this as a financial